picture. Oh, now it's recording.
Okay, I'm going to tell you all about the process that DreamWorks Animation goes through when they're developing an animation film. This process takes generally 3 to 5 years, which is actually a pretty long process for them to create the entire movie. I grew up loving animation films, and I've actually researched them before in high school, so I know a lot about them. But this time I got to specifically look at the DreamWorks company. Some movies you guys might know to help you connect with them are Shrek and How to Train Your Dragon. You guys have seen those, and there's many other movies, but those are just 2 big ones. They go through 3 major steps when developing their animation films. Those are idea development, sound development, and visual development. For idea development, it starts with a great idea. So whether it be a new idea or an old idea, there has to be an idea to start the entire process. And from that idea, a script is written. So if it's a new idea, a brand new script has to be drawn up. And if it's an old idea, it can come from like a book, which I'm sure you guys have seen animation films come from a book before. So that's the first stage. And the second stage is sound development. Sound development comes in 2 parts, the casting and the sound effects. Casting is actually more important than you would think, because when casting, even though you don't physically see the actors, because they're the only human form in an animation film, they're what connects with the audience. So the casting directors who look for which actors they want to use have to focus on listening with their ears rather than looking with their eyes. So they don't focus more on appearance, they focus more on what the actors sound like and how their reactions are. And the second part of sound development is the sound effects. So when music gets more intense or more loud noises, you know that it's a more important part rather than a more relaxed. And the last stage is visual development. And this is probably the most complex stage. It comes in, there's many different things that come along with it. So first, the storyboard artists have to take the script from the visual development stage and basically make a picture book. So they, for each scene, make a general picture, and this eventually develops into what is called a story reel, and it's worked with in this form for approximately 18 months, which, if you guys remember earlier, I said that it takes about 3 to 5 years to develop an entire animation film, and 18 months of that 3 to 5 years is used just in the story reel form. And then after the story reel, they then have to do it technologically, so they use a stereoscopic 3D technology to make it into animation. And it sounds like really complex and hard to understand, but it's really just the type of technology they use to make it animated. So they first start out with amateurs of figures, which are basically the basic outlines of them. So if you were to take Shrek, for example, and put him on a piece of paper and outline him, that would be the amateur. And then once the amateur is done, they do something called the rigging process, where they just basically begin to make it come to life. So they add bones, joints, fat. So when a character bends their arm and those creases in their arm, that comes in this step. And then if you've ever looked at Shrek's eyes, they're really, really detailed. They look a lot, like very similar to human eyes. So they do that to bring the character to life and make it feel real to you. After they finish the entire character, they then work on the layout. And they start by doing what is called a rough layout. And a rough layout is basically like the amateur of a figure. It's very, very general. And so if, for example, they're trying to draw mountains, they would just draw on the computer and the technology, just like big mountains, wouldn't add detail at all. But then they would slowly like add more and more detail until they have the final layout, which has to be approved by the director. So once they have the final layout, they have to combine the final layout with the characters, put them together, and then this is still in all black and white, no color has been added. So that's when the surfacing artists come in to add textures and colors, which this stage is actually one of the most tedious and complex stages out of the entire development or visual development stage. Because, for example, when you paint a wall at home, have you guys ever seen that color wheel with like 18 different shades of each color? All right, well, surfacing artists actually use all those to their advantage. So, for example, if they're trying to color a bush, they'll use all 18 shades of green to add contrast and to make it look real. And then after the surfacing artists do that, then the effects and the lighting come in. These are actually also super important in the visual development stage. So the lighting is pretty basic. It's just night, day, if there's light coming from a lamp or light coming in through a window, they add those little details. And then effects, if you've ever seen How to Train Your Dragon, when the boy is flying on the dragon, he kind of flies in the air, and then when he turns over, the sky changes from night to day. And that kind of easy transition is an effect because they make it look real. They make it look like it actually happened. So that is actually extremely important. So those are the 3 major steps in the DreamWorks development process. And it's actually very simple, and very similar to other animation companies. They all do generally the same thing, but everyone does things their own little way. So I challenge you all to go home and watch a DreamWorks animation film and try to pick out all those little details. So look in the corner and try to look at a rock or a tree branch or even like a blade of grass. It's super detailed, and they actually make it so detailed so that you will overlook it because it looks so real to you.